Hello, my sweet friends. I'm so glad to see you. This is Dr. Robin Gould. I'm coming to you at a little bit of an off hour, not the usual time that I talk, but I thought we could fill in some gaps with the schedule here a little. And I had something that I thought would be important to share, a conversation I've been having a lot lately with different people. And I thought it could be valuable to just do this extra little show for a few minutes, just in case you want to pass this along to people about the Sabbath. So, if you ever want to find me, my website's newcovenantpath.com. I'm actually on sabbatical from that website, not putting content on there, but you can read blogs and see podcasts. And anyway, but you can, let me actually put the chat on here. Sorry about the ring light you're going to see, but I'm actually going to put the chat here. And there's Marie. Oh, look at you. Hi, Marie. You must have seen that I popped on the air and you came on. I'm so glad to see you. Today was just like a house cleaning day and a work from home office kind of a day. And anyway, I've just been having some conversations with people that I felt like warranted a follow-up. So let's just get into a couple of ideas about the Sabbath. So if you have been a person that had been in the mainstream church, you might have for many years or still do worship on Sunday and, get together and have a service and enjoy that very much. And certainly not in any way trying to put anybody out here. But I just wanted to address a couple of the things that people struggle with. So the audience here to whom I speak are, if you are new to the Sabbath and struggling or even questioning anything about the Sabbath, I want to create a non-threatening conversation for you to just sort of explore this. I know it can be very difficult to transition from Sunday worship, which is something that many people have done for most of their life, and it's mainstream, and it's just something that you know and understand, to this Torah lifestyle where we have the Sabbath, which actually is a lifestyle and not just a day, but it is a day. It is the seventh day. And so a lot of the arguments that ensue are really unnecessary and yet at the same time necessary. So when I say arguments, the arguments are unnecessary. We don't need to argue with people. But the debates and the discussions about how we arrive at information, this is how people wrestle with truth and wrestle with information. Now, a person that wants truth, there's nothing you can do to stop them from getting it, because they will search and pursue until they find it. If somebody doesn't want truth, there's nothing you can do to just inject them with that desire. So remember, when we debate and we discuss and we yeshiva about how we talk about things, just remember, you don't have to convince anybody of anything. But it does bear talking a little bit about some of these issues. Now, my next show on Tuesday is going to be part 2 of a series on Miriam, so I didn't want to interrupt that. And so here, because this seems to be dominating the airwaves on another cycle of the Sabbath. So these are some things that you might be thinking about the Sabbath, or you might have family or friends or people you love that they're thinking this way, and you would like to share with them. And it's often hard to share with our own people, right? Our own friends and family. I noticed that. Actually, I'm hearing from Marie again. After 4 years of doing the Sabbath, I just found out you're to end with a prayer. Who knew? Yes, Abdullah. That's right, Marie. Oh, I wish I could have Sabbath with you in person and we could do that together. Okay, so let's get into a couple of the things that people will say that sort of give the impression we're not to keep the seventh-day Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to read a bunch of scripture. This is just a show about ideas. Now, please know the 4th commandment, keep the Sabbath, go and read that. You can't get around the Sabbath. It's everywhere, right? The whole Bible is just it's such a huge part of the Bible. And so a lot of people think this is an Old Testament concept that Yeshua himself did not keep or care about, and in fact admonish, which is not true. He kept it and he didn't ever challenge it or question it. And had he done that, of course, he would have been killed. I mean, he was a kosher Jewish rabbi. I mean, there's no way that would have happened. But because the Sabbath on the 7th day, which we call Saturday, the 7th day Sabbath had been in place for so many years that thousands of years, right? This wasn't even a question that you would switch the day. Which day is it? So a lot of people will ask questions, and there's a great Becky book by Jane Diffenderfer about the Sabbath. Please check it out and read that book. I think you'll love it. Valerie Moody does beautiful teachings as well in the Sabbath. I really enjoy that. Jose Ilwine, I mean, you're really going to, I mean, all the Keisha Gallagher, I mean, these people have amazing materials and content. So don't miss that. But the idea of the Sabbath, it being just a New Testament myth, right? It's an Old Testament thing, and now it's a myth in the New Testament. Not true at all. So the first thing people might say is, well, how do we even know what the seventh day is? Okay, so from the very beginning, we have some stake markers of when the Sabbath was, right? So very early on, we had the seventh day cycle that's never ceased from the very beginning of time. We have God himself resting on the Sabbath. He himself setting apart that day. It's a holy day. It's a set apart day. It's a different day than any other day. So that's a very important concept to understand about the Sabbath. And then we have another marker where we're getting into something more contemporary. Let's talk about when the Israelites wandered in the desert and they had manna, double manna on Friday, none on Shabbos, right? So we have another marker of which the Sabbath day was. Then we do have the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament writings, where no one argued over which day that fell, and this has been universal. This is now universal around the world. That seventh day is calculated to fit with Israel's seventh day. So just remember that which day of the week historically isn't an argument. And anyways, we're just touching on that because we're really not going to go into everything in depth. I just wanted to kind of joggle, I don't know if that's a word, but joggle your mind into just kind of ignite it into some of these ideas and concepts that you're hearing. So let's say, okay, so the question is the Sabbath a burden? Is the Sabbath a really harsh commandment that's meant to make life really hard for us? So I want you to bring yourself back in a way you can to culturally back in Bible days. Now, it's still Bible days, but you know what I'm saying. The time when this is written, right? Let's go back and think about a day set apart from work. Wonderful day, right? Wonderful to be set apart from work, to rest and to relax and to have this day. Was it viewed as a burden then to be commanded to rest? Well, there's something interesting about being commanded to rest. Now, when you're a tiny little baby, like let's say you're 3, and you're still taking naps, and your parent, they know you're tired. They're well versed in the way that you act and handle life, and they are seeing you act tired. So they are laying you down for a nap. And you're like fighting and kicking and screaming, no, I don't want a nap. I don't want to miss out on the fun and all the kids are out or whatever. But eventually you are tired and you go to sleep because your parent knows more than you, that they know you need rest, right? You need to relax. You need to sleep. So yes, maybe some people do view this as a very harsh commandment, telling me I can't do what I want on the Sabbath day. The idea would be to come into allegiance with his heart and what he wants, and it being what we want. That's the easiest way, right? That's the easiest way, when that actually is intrinsically pleasing to us because we have transformed to be holy because he is holy. That's the goal, right? That's our goal. So is this a mean commandment? Well, the Sabbath means you rest. If people work for you, they rest. You can't make them rest. Your family rests. Your animals rest. It's a day everybody rests at the same time. Everybody at the same time rests. So is that a burden to be commanded to rest? Well, guess what? I love when I'm prescribed something amazing because then I don't have to defend it to anybody else. Well, will you come and help me build a house this week? No, it's the Sabbath. Okay, will you come and help me load up whatever? No, it's the Sabbath. Is there another day? I will help you on another day. Having that as a commandment is helping me, right? Helps me not have to say no and feel bad about it and have to come up with all of these excuses when I really just need rest. So when we all set our compass to the same thing, how wonderful is that? Very wonderful, right? That's a way that our parent, our father, takes care of his people. And I want to get even a little more in depth, but let's talk about this. People will say, but Jesus is my rest, right? I don't keep the Sabbath because Jesus is my rest. So Yeshua certainly is our rest in that he provides for us salvation, right? He provides for us from the foundation of the world. He has provided that ultimate rest. But the word for using rest there is not the word for Shabbat, right? For the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a day, and it's a day off. So if you combine this with the other argument about, well, shouldn't we worship every day, not just that day? Okay, so we're not going to use the words worship and rest interchangeably. They aren't the same word and they don't have the same meaning. But we often think that they are the same word and they have the same meaning when they don't. Resting and worshiping are different things. You can rest and not worship. You can worship and not rest. You can be worshiping while you're operating your tractor, right? You can be resting and watching a movie and not even being involved in any sort of worship. Okay, right? So rest and worship are not the same thing. So if the Messiah is your rest, yes, of course, every day. And we should worship every day. But is the Messiah your day off? Okay, so that's where we start getting into, let's not overly metaphorize. Is that a word? I think I just invented the best word. I don't know how to say that word. Paging Dr. Halissa Aline. How can I? She would know. But if we over idealize in an idea, that's another word I'm making up. Idealize, but it's idealize. Okay, I'm inventing a new dictionary. This is fun. This might be another whole show. When we remove the practical application of things and makes things overtly metaphoric, that's right. We are missing something, right? We're going to be missing something. Yes, there's many ways to, understand the Messiah metaphorically in our lives. Absolutely. And the Sabbath, I'm not saying he isn't the one that cradles us, but the Sabbath is a seventh day and it's a day off to not work in your regular job. Well, the Messiah is your rest, yes, but guess what? If the Messiah is your Sabbath and the Sabbath is your day off, then you're saying the Messiah is my day off, then you always have the Messiah, then every day you take off, you don't work, you don't allow your animals to work, and you don't allow anyone that works for you to work. Well, that wouldn't even make sense. You could never do that. The Messiah is always with us, so we never work because we have him as our rest. Do you see that connection that we're making there? We're taking him and we're exclusively using him as a metaphor, right? That's not what we want to do. We don't want to do that. So the Sabbath is the seventh day of the week, and it's the day off from work. There remains a keeping of the Sabbath for the people of God, right? There remains that. The Sabbath is a very important day. Different religions have different Sabbaths. It's an identifier. That's why the fourth commandment has the identification of who God is. And if you read that commandment, you will read that he is the creator of heaven and earth, right? It gives his name, his title, and his jurisdiction. And that is a very important part of the signet ring of the king, stamping on, and that's right in the middle of the 10 words, right? With that stamp of approval. Very interesting. Let me see what Marie is saying. Oh, Julie. Hi, Julie. And Julie says, hi, Marie. We start and end with prayers. Kind of like bookends for Shabbat. Yes, it is bookends. That's very true. Yes, I really love that. Friday candles and Saturday night Havdalah. Yes, I love that. So the Messiah is not our 365 days a year day off. there are days we have to work, we have to go to work. And the practical applications of the Sabbath help communities, help people, help individuals, help groups. And it's a commandment, period. When we wrestle with things too much and we get overly wrestling, we're trying to understand beyond our pay grade. And that's not good and healthy for us. There are times we just do what we are told because our parent tells us what to do. But the Sabbath seems to be a real triggering factor for people. And the idea that the Messiah is our worship and our rest and our salvation, yeah, that is all true. But he is not our day off exclusively for the whole world. So let me explain a little. Let me give you a couple more examples. Let me look at, okay, community harmony. So if we are all off on the same day, right? If Sabbath is our, on the seventh day. Okay, now I actually attended a fellowship a long time ago, many, many years ago. And their belief was that you just picked a day. You picked it. You yourself decided what day was your Sabbath, and then you would rest on that day, right? So you'd go through, the Sabbath preparation and be prepared, and you'd pick that day and you would do that day. Okay. So there's a preparation day. You could, when you read about the Sabbath, right? You bake what you're going to bake and boil what you're going to boil the day before, so that on the Sabbath day, you're not in, major cooking and major food preparation. You've done that ahead and you get to rest. So the way the Sabbath lifestyle operates is where you do your extra groceries on Thursday and, prep cooking and cleaning that day, and then finish cooking and cleaning on Friday. At sunset, we light candles and, bless the bread and the wine, and then we eat our meal, and then we are from evening to evening. And then we do a Havdalah in the evening. So that fellowship believed you pick the day. So, of course, they were missing that beautiful cyclical, since the beginning of time situation where this cycle's not been broken, and it's always been the seventh day. Okay. Love that idea, right? But we lose that idea when we were doing that. Now, while I was attending this fellowship, I was actually part of a dance team. And everybody picked their own Sabbath. I think you know where I'm going with this, what that was like, right? So it would be like, well, we wanted to have a dance rehearsal. And that fellowship actually met on Sunday. And it's like, okay, so we're going to do a dance for the fellowship. So we had to schedule a rehearsal. Well, let's meet Thursday. Well, no, that's Mary's Sabbath. Okay, so we can't do it Thursday because that's Mary's Sabbath. Now I kept the regular Sabbath, so let's meet on Friday. Well, Saturday's Robin's Sabbath, so she'll be prepping Friday and needing candles Friday. Okay, so we're not meeting on Friday. Okay, let's try Wednesday. Well, no, because it was Alicia's Sabbath on Wednesday, so we can't meet. So we could just to even try to schedule a dance rehearsal was impossible. And so you started to see it was actually divisive. It was like, well, can you just change your Sabbath so that we can have a dance team? So we all have the Sabbath on the same day for a dance team. So we would do that for a dance team, but we wouldn't do that for the greater good of humanity. Like, do you understand? It didn't work. It never worked. We were never on the same page. And one of the biggest things is we should be on the same page, at least pacing ourselves emotionally for the Sabbath, because there is an emotional pacing for the Sabbath. People who are on the same week schedule tend to be a more cohesive group. And you could understand that, right? Fridays can be a bit harried until sunset. And people get that. People don't encroach on my Fridays. They know I'm busy Friday. They'll be like, we could meet Friday unless you're, that's going to interrupt prep. And I'll be like, no, I have a little time. I can carve that out. But they're so respectful because they know, right? And I would be the same way with them. Wonderful community, cohesive, embracing of a paced lifestyle where people feel this usually the same way on Sunday. that their neighbor does that's keeping the Sabbath, because it's, oh, I'm so rested and I can kind of hit the ground running and get my yard work done and start doing other things, which is pretty common in our Western society. You know, we have our weekends, right? So Friday night, you know, people are done work, they're so relieved. So we're kind of in pace with the mainstream world there. But then Saturday is usually like a sports day, yard work day, parties, whatever people are doing, where Sabbath keepers are going to set that day aside and do that. And then they're going to probably fit in their baby showers and sports and all the other things and their yard work on Sunday. So we are in my group, in my faith system, we're the same. You know, we understand each other. We are paced pretty similarly. It would make sense that a community would operate that way. That would make sense just from a practical standpoint. What a smart God we have. Okay, now let's talk about people who have people working for them. You are not to make them work on the Sabbath. That's part of the law of the Sabbath. Well, good, because then everybody that works for you, and if people work for other people, they all know which day they have off. It's not like if you have people that work for you, you say, no, our day, our Sabbath that we pick is Wednesday, and that those people do Saturday, and then these people can't get together to get together, right? To have a day off together. So this helps everybody, but people can really kind of get myopically focused on what they want. And the Sabbath is to transform you into what God wants for you, because he knows that when you do things his way, you will function optimally, because he created you to work well within this system. And that day off is very important, having that day off. And so another part, whenever I talk about the Sabbath, I always have to bring this up because I think it's such an important thing. Now, we obey the Sabbath because God himself tells us to, and we don't need to have a three-ring circus of reasons why. But I want to tell you this because this is just something that I've noticed. So I call it the principle of withdrawing. So in life, and you know this in your own life, when you step away, let's just actually go even from a more macro view. Anthropologists will say, if you want to understand your world, leave it and return, right? Leave it to observe it. So when you are consistently exposed to something, you can become very desensitized to the elements of it. And your adaptability, you're created as an adaptive being. And so you can adapt to things. And if you never get a break, you might stay in that system much longer than is healthy. But different people have different ideas about how many days it takes to form like a habit. But I will say, for me, if I can do anything for a week, I can pretty much say I've conquered, the thing. If I can just get through one of each days of the week, then I can get through. I can form a habit. But if I am pulled away from something, it's harder to re-enter. I have to make conscious, intentional choices to re-enter. So, like, let's say that you're around a cantankerous person. You might live with a cantankerous roommate or whatever, and you are always with that person, and it's so negative, but you're used to it, right? You're always around it. You're not ever really having a break from it. And so you go on vacation for a week and you're just realizing, wow, my blood pressure is lower and my hair's not falling out and my skin looks better. I'm rested. I'm sleeping better. And you're like, I wonder why. And then you go back and then you're dealing with your roommate again, and they're really negative and pessimistic and discouraging. And all of a sudden you get that pit in your stomach and you're like, oh, see, it's like because I left it, I could measure how it felt to not have that. So the Sabbath is nice because it gives us information about ourselves, our world, the way we are interacting in our world. And it causes us, and it confronts us. It causes us to confront the intentionality of re-entering something. We have to consciously re-enter, right? We make decisions based on having, that withdraw time. So I'm going to say, wow, I've had this day of rest and just really relaxed and was with my family, and we were just spending time together and eating and worshiping. And I really, really love this feeling. And then now I have to go back and do this. I'm going to start being able to measure, is that what I'm going back to good for me? Not, is it hard? Because there's a lot of things that are difficult, but is it good for me? So getting away from the world for one day can help the world not be your habit. So it's a very genius system, if you ask me, anyway, that it would be built this way, that it would be on that principle of 7, that you would every week together at the same time have a Sabbath. Now, in the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, right, the newer writings, there were tensions around Sabbath themes with Yeshua very clearly. I'm sorry, my allergies are really acting up. And I think there's like a lawn landscaping tournament happening in this house, because you wouldn't even believe the grass I'm like I'm allergic to. But anyway, what was I just saying? Boy, I just getting a little too comfortable here with everybody. Somebody tell me what I was just saying. Because I think, oh my gosh, bookends. Somebody can pop in, like Julie or Marie. What did I say before? I was talking about my allergies. It actually makes me cloudy headed when I'm allergic to things. And if not, I'll just go into another point about the Sabbath. Oh, yes. Okay. The newer writings. So yes, there were issues with a certain sect of Pharisees who were against Messiah. Not all Pharisees were. I want you to know that, but the ones that were against him, they were disputing some things about the way he was handling his observance of the Sabbath. So, he had plucked some grain to feed, his followers in there, but he wasn't, gathering pails of it and, hulling and all this. He just had gathered some of the wheat berries to, he had just picked it to eat. And he's talking, he talks about the showbread and all that. So, there's all these things that you know about, where how do we observe this? Like, how do we observe the Sabbath? And we do need to know how to observe the Sabbath. And there are scriptures that are very emphatic about how to observe the Sabbath. And some of this comes from the oral law, from the Mishnah, and the sages explained this to us. So some people are very much against anything like with the Mishnah, all of that, because they think, oh, you're adding to. But the Bible, it would be the 10 words, the 10 commandments would be the index as I see it. And then the rest is to fill in how to observe it. And then there's that oral law that should be fluid, but should fill in how as a community do we practically apply this, that we can be together. So the sages and the Mishnah is not to control people in a bad way, but to create cohesiveness so that our compass is all set to this leadership to make the Sabbath easier, not harder. So here's the example I like to use for this. It doesn't say in the Bible, don't watch television. It doesn't say that anywhere. Okay. But let's say the Mishnah, the Talmud now would say, don't watch television on that day. Like, take that day off. Okay, let's just, before you, don't hang up, don't go. So what would that mean? That there would be this expectation from a Talmudic or a rabbinical standpoint. And people get really upset about that. But I just want to say, when you're in a community, right? When you're in a community, you operate as a community. Okay. And the whole idea of Hebraic systems is that in Western systems, we're very individualistic, where we should be community minded, and we're very community minded where we should be individualistic. And we kind of have that flipped. But in a true, lovely Hebraic way of looking at things, right? We would think of our community and what would be best for our community. So if one family takes it upon themselves to just stay watching television, and I'll tell you what, I watch television, but you are being programmed, and sometimes it's okay and fine. But, remember, it's good to have a day off from being programmed. Television is a lot of time just great stories and ways to wrestle with ourselves and our ideas, and and I'm not saying that's bad, but Anything that we do 6 days, we should have a day away. So, but let's say this family takes it upon themselves, they want to have television in their community. And their kids are like, we watch TV because it didn't say in the Bible we didn't have to watch that, we can't watch TV. Well, what might happen with that community? Can you picture the next door neighbor kids? Picture this. You have an 8-year-old and an 8-year-old, okay? And picture, how does this 8-year-old feel not being able to watch fun cartoons when this 8-year-old can? What does that cause? Well, this 8-year-old is mad at his parents because they aren't as fun as these parents. And that can cause problems between the parents. These people might be like, well, it's a free country. I can do what I want. And in this community, you're supposed to not judge me and be forgiving. But what divisiveness are you interjecting? And so the rabbinical idea of having a cohesive observance of the Sabbath is a beautiful picture of a family coming together and having family rules and submitting to these rules. And so that can be very confusing to people. And I understand that that's confusing because even like I said in my last show, we can go to the grocery store and we will stand in line without being questioning anything. It is not written, we stand in line. We just know that's the best way to do it. You wait in line, you don't just cut people. You don't just walk in and cut people. Even though it's not written that you have to stay in line, you just know the norms. So there can be rabbinical norms to help a community observe cohesively. I even spoke to a rabbi in Israel about this, and we were talking, and he said that one of the biggest jobs he has is to permit things. So the idea is that people would go and say, Rabbi, I have a requirement in my job. I have to go to a convention or something on this Shabbos, and I will lose my job, and whatever, right? So they would talk to the rabbi. And so is the rabbi in charge of that family? No, the rabbi is the helper of the whole community. So in this case, there would have been the rabbi would say, well, okay, you are in obedience to the spirit of community observance of Torah by even caring to talk to me. And then they might even give you interventions on how to still keep that day set apart the best you can as we operate in Babylon, right? It's not the same as in Israel when everything shuts down. And so maybe, even my son in the Marine Corps, it's like maybe on the Sabbath when you have to work, you can put your shoes on a different way. Maybe you can get dressed in a different order. Just things that are simple, but are in your control that can still demonstrate that you're setting this day apart and doing things differently. And I know that might sound dumb and whatever, but if you think about your heart, right? It's just your heart, right? It's just like I have these pot holders that were my grandfather's. When I use them, anyway, it's my heart. Is that stupid that pot holders would represent my love for something? Well, for me, it's not stupid. Right. So for me, it touches my heart and something that I observe and something I do ritualistically to remember him. So I want you to kind of just get back into this whole relational touch, get all the feels with the Sabbath, and don't get so upset over all of this noise, this background noise of, do we submit to authorities when it's not in the Bible? Well, you're going to find it doesn't say in the Bible not to buy or sell. It's talked about in the Bible. So it tells you the oral law. There's a lot to this. So I don't want you to be upset with the sages and terrified of all of these things. I just really want you to be able to kind of slip out of this and look at this with such a kinder eye. Look at the Sabbath as not a harsh, mean, terrible thing to make you miss out on all Babylon's trappings. No, look at this as a day of prescribed rest where he's saying, I'm resting, you rest too. Let's be together in this way. Let's have a time where we don't work and we all don't work together. And let's be a community and let's be a family. We all have the same name, and in our house, we have the same house rules. Try to get out of a rebel without a cause, because the cause of just being an individual isn't really a cause when you're a part of a community. And that's something that you learn when you learn systems and groups. You have to learn to be a community. We have to learn to be brothers and sisters. And we have to learn how to make Sabbath easier on each other. especially in a system that hates the Sabbath, right? We live in this society, and everything good is happening on the Sabbath that we have to miss, and we have to make these really difficult decisions. And that's hard. So we don't need to make it harder on each other by having arguments within the Sabbath, about the Sabbath, within the Sabbath, of observing the Sabbath. I mean, do you know how deep and hardcore we're getting into these arguments? So I see that a lot. It leads to anti-Semitism. It leads to at least like a hint or an air of anti-Semitism. We don't want to go there. We want to remember the Sabbath is a blessing, right? The Sabbath is made for man. The Sabbath is good. Man needs a day off. You can't work 365 days a year. So the metaphor of the Messiah being your Sabbath just doesn't work. You have to have a day that your compass is set to, and the people who work for you can depend on it. Your animals can depend on it. The store shops can depend on it. You can become a predictable people. And that's great, because that's less explaining you always have to do. Right? Does that help you? Do you think this might help new people that might be upset with a lot of this stuff? Because I'm going on a limb with talking about this ages. People get really upset. Oh, Colleen and Nitsa, thank you. Oh, I love your comments, and I love that you're here. Anyway, I had a conversation the other day with somebody about this, and they were wrestling and they were close to tears because they don't understand. They have really been taught for so many years and heard with such a loving lens. You've been rescued from all that. And here you have me and other people saying, rescued from a wonderful day of rest? Well, I don't even say it like that because it's so arrogant, because they don't understand what you're saying. They have been they've learned that through a lens that has colored everything. And another example I always use: watch a blonde go gray that you've known. You still see them as a blonde, even though they've gone gray in their older years, because it's gradual and you just know how to see it. You look at them and you're right. And that's how people get desensitized to things. You just see it so much that you don't think about it anymore. And that's like your conscience seared with like a hot iron. We don't want to have our conscience seared with a hot iron where nothing in and nothing out. We don't want that. But we want to create around ourselves that beautiful buffer of the Torah, right? That's a buffer around you that protects you, that saves you from all of this explaining. So when we're having yeshiva, we're together and we're discussing the Torah. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything, except we're just sharing our hearts. But when you're talking with somebody who has been taught that the Sabbath was a burden that the Messiah delivered you from, I want you to just take it one step further. For that person, they're kind of heartbroken because they don't know where to go with that. They don't know what to do. They were wrong all those years. What does that mean? How do I go forward? My friends don't agree with me. I have groups and roots there, and now I'm going here and I don't understand. It's very hard to transition from one system to another. Even if you believe it and have the best of intentions, people wrestle with this. So, beloved daughters of the King in my group will struggle with the Sabbath for the very best of reasons. So we don't ever want to like paint them with a brush of like, well, when you're ready for truth, call me. I'll be talking to you about it. Just make sure we don't have that attitude. People are tender and bruised as they learn things that they didn't know. And, I'm learning things I don't know all the time. And are you? I mean, I hope we all are. And we certainly don't need a taskmaster, over us with a whip. We definitely just need a handhold to say, you know what? Wrestle with this. Take this to the mat like you need to, and it'll be okay. Because truth, when you're seeking it, believe me, it's very easy to find. It's just not always as easy to do. So that's where the community comes in. That's where the community who's used to the Sabbath says, I have 100 little ideas to give you of how to make this easier, because I do it every single week of my life. That's where the community comes in. That's where the consistency of the Sabbath comes in. And you can take the bull by the horns and get help. And when I was, very, it's been so many years ago, but I still remember when I first started keeping the real Sabbath the real way. And I'm not saying I do it perfectly. Please don't think I'm saying that, but the best way I can with a good prep day, really, really good prep day. There was a lot of places that you can read about now we didn't have then. I mean, this was not a big internet thing all these years, it was 20 years ago. But you know what? There were a few people that would write about how they did it. And I would go into where they were writing, and it was helpful to hear people and the way that they paced their week to live this Sabbath lifestyle. So the takeaway here is don't mix the word worship and rest. And just because they go together doesn't mean they're the same thing and they're interchangeable. They're not. So that kind of takes us out of that whole Messiah is my Sabbath. That helps you with that, but it doesn't in any way minimize who the Messiah is. Is he everything? Yes, but he's not a day off. That's what he's not. So the practical application will stand. The Torah always will stand, no matter what. You're panning for gold, the sand goes away, the gold remains, right? And that's the Torah. And there's this big sifting, and it's happening, and you're seeing it. And these people are struggling because this sifting is shaking and rattling them, and it's really, really hard. So if you're new to the Sabbath, if you've had these arguments going on in your heart and in your head and in your world, and you've been taught that the Sabbath is a burden, and you've been taught that we don't even know the day, we get to pick the day, it's mean, what a horrible thing, it makes you miss everyone's wedding. You know, that isn't necessarily true. And also that's viewing the Sabbath through our cultural lens and not for the truth of what it is in and of itself. Now, yes, we do have a lot of things to work out in our society. And anybody on here that wants to speak up, do you go through this where you're just constantly weighing the heavy matters here? Nitsa says, yes, first lesson learned. I had to start on the first day of the week to gear the week to be ready for Shabbat. It's a good spiritual parallel for the bride pacing herself and getting ready for Geula restoration. Yes. Oh my goodness. You know what? Nitsa, that is so true. That is so wise too. And you know, that whole pacing that we do together like we're sisters, right? We would, if I called you on Wednesday, you'd probably be emotionally at least moving toward the Sabbath like I was, because we know that it's almost Thursday. We probably have a very similar by default, right, of how this works. And your comment about the bride. So what does it mean that I misunderstood this all this time? Well, get yourself even withdraw from that question. That isn't our big question. The big question is what does it mean that it was mistranslated for you? Well, if something was mistranslated and you misunderstood it and you're finding it now, well, that's part of the pursuit of the groom. When you're in love, you want to get to know who you're married, right? To whom you're betrothed. You want to get to know them. Now, acquaintances are acquaintances because they don't really know you that well. And they're not going to investigate. But if they do start getting involved with you and wanting to know you and to reveal themselves to you, that sounded bad, but share themselves with you of who they are and what they think about, then they become more than an acquaintance, right? Echad movement. Yes, Nitsa. Yes. Echad means one. And yes, exactly right. Yes, my sister, we are. And, but the bride, so the person who's an acquaintance that wants to get to know you more becomes a friend. And then the more you spend time together and the more you know of them and the more they know of you, they become a close friend. And then maybe they become a best friend. And then maybe they become a girl or boyfriend. And then maybe they become a spouse. But that's the idea of who is the bride. There are guests at the wedding, friends at the wedding. But who is the bride? You cannot turn someone into a bride, and you cannot prevent someone from being the bride, because you can't force truth on somebody, but you can't hide it from someone that wants it. So whoever really wants this is going to delight in the process of finding it and not despise it and be angry that they didn't know it. Now, maybe we will at first. I'm not judging you if you're like, oh, I wish I knew this. Yeah, that's your beauty saying that. Don't let that simmer into anger and change and stay in the process of this journey that you can take now to discover new things that you didn't know. That now is your time for this journey. Now is your time for this journey. And as this sifting comes out, right? How does the Father know who the bride is? The bride wants to know all the things. And she is pursuing and she's uncovering and digging out, right? Like I know my husband, right? I know him. I know the way he operates and what he needs and how he functions. That's really important for the bride. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I really just wanted to pop in and say a few things. And oh, hi, Colleen. Thank you, Dr. Will. It's very late here in the South Africa. I will come back and listen to this recording and share this with our Bible study folk. Oh, I'm so glad. Colleen, thank you. Tell me how it goes. I want to hear. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Yep. So I just kind of had an inspiration. I kind of went online just really quickly and forgot to put myself in the stream. Then I had to restart it, of course. But anyway, there's just some musings on the Sabbath, some ideas, some ways to think about these things that are simple, but have become very complicated. And let's try to tease out all these problems and just kind of get down to that relational, practical application of the Sabbath and enjoy it together. So if you're keeping the Sabbath, I so celebrate that with you. If you're investigating the Sabbath, I celebrate that too, because you know what? I'd love to see you there. I'd love to hear about your first Sabbath. So Jane Differ's book on BEKY, Becky Books on Amazon, go check that out. Her Sabbath book is great. There's other great ones too. But anyway, I'm glad I've got to see you. I am going to, let's see if there's anybody else here to check out. Nope, it looks like that's all the comments we have. Okay, well, thanks. I've enjoyed talking about the Sabbath with you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. And I will see you Tuesday at 6 Eastern time to finish our study on Miriam. And remember, no matter what you've done, what Sabbaths you've missed, where you've been wrong, what you didn't know, remember, it doesn't even matter today because the future begins now.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.